Exeter v Wolves FA Cup 3rd round, 6 January 1978. This little-known match from the 70s has grown in interest over the years because of the KKK news reports. Wolves fan Mike tells his story, not this Mike Wolves fan. Exeter away will always be remembered by many as the game that started the KKK saga in Wolverhampton. I think it's time to put the record straight on exactly what happened at that game and the aftermath. I think it's fair to say that this season's 77-78s and the previous season's 76-77s were probably Wolves' South Bank firm's biggest, in terms of trouble on the terraces. They were a couple of years away from the notorious fence, and so you could simply attack each other if you were brave enough to try and get through the police line. On Boxing Day 78, the South Bank had battered a massive Leeds following. I'm not talking a wee fight, I mean a massive battle, toe-to-toe, where the police melted away and let them get on with it. Leeds were no match for the South Bank that day, and by the end of the match they had all legged it. I personally had never seen a Wolves mob like that one. Anyway, that was about 2 weeks previous to the Exeter match, and people were still buzzing about what had happened. Not sure how many tickets we had, but I would guess there were 5,000 Wolves in the crowd. A small ground with not too many police, friendly folk, for a while, until the fighting and pitch invasion started. Don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Mass pitch invasions, fences and boardings used as weapons. Exeter fans didn't know where to run. It was complete chaos. Anyway, the old Bill started to film us with video cameras. This was completely new to most of us. I certainly never saw one used before this match. Several people started putting their coats over their faces like you would, but a couple had some old what looked to me like pillowcases. Now whether they knew they would be filmed so brought some along, or whatever reason, I don't know. They cut some holes out so they could see and breathe. Everyone was laughing at them and it was all tongue-in-cheek. The game ended 2-2 with another pitch invasion where the crossbar was snapped in two, but it will always be remembered for the KKK fans. After the match, the small police escort couldn't cope with the Wolves fans and many windows were bricked and Exeter people came out their houses to see the mass invasion. I don't think they had ever seen anything like it. The national press had a field day stating Wolverhampton was the new home of the KKK and all rubbish like that. The KKK came to Wolves for some meetings, but they left saying there wasn't sufficient support. It was farcical really, and quite a sad time for Wolverhampton, I felt. I knew a couple of Black Wolves fans and they already had to endure the racist chanting such as, "Pull that trigger," and other unsavory ditties. They would get even worse abuse away from home, even attacked by the police who called them all names you could imagine. Yes, there were times when the whole of the Wolves would sing these songs, but talking to these guys, they never thought Wolves was a particular racist club, not in any way. There were a few really racist fans as there are now, but I think in general, Wolves fans weren't that bad. The guys I knew used to frequent the George Hotel anyway and could look after themselves, so I guess unless someone was directly being racist to them, probably not Wolves fans, they wouldn't take it personally. I know I used to think, bloody hell, I wouldn't want to be them at say Leeds or Millwall, somewhere where they would stand out even more, if they got lost or something. Then again, I wouldn't want to be lost there anyway, whether white or black. Anyway, my opinion of the whole affair is that it was all a misunderstanding and nothing at all to do with any Wolves racism. That's my view of the whole event at Exeter. And Exeter fan Chris told us. When I look back, it was a war zone really. There were Wolves fans all over the city, most of them intimidating. The police seemed to have given up, and even before the match reinforcements were drafted in from Plymouth, I believe. I remember sitting in the Black Horse pre-match, and counting the Wolves coaches going past. When I got to I think 30, I removed my scarf and stuffed it down my jacket. I already had a bad feeling about this match, and I also knew they had 2 football specials coming. Walking to the ground, someone had painted "Death to the Waffles" on one of the buildings across the railway line. The misspelling made me laugh. At the ground there was thousands of them waiting to get in their end, and fighting with a few police. It was carnage. Inside the ground, even before kick-off, there were several pitch invasions by the Wolves mob. I remember there was a band on the pitch. A load of Wolves fans invaded the pitch and ran through the band, who continued playing, while the Wolves fans headed for the big bank close to the goal. Remember the old fellas around me shaking their fists at the Wolves scum who had run the length of the pitch to jump into our end. They jumped in anyway. We jumped out. Then when we scored, all hell broke loose. I can remember the away end fencing being broken, and the Wolves hoolies heading toward the cowshed. One of my most scary moments, supporting the boys in red and white. Some of the Wolves mob had pillowcases over their heads and looked like the KKK was invading Exeter. I think it was to avoid detection from the police, who had some brand new surveillance cameras targeting the Wolves hooligans. The Wolves fans did not get into the cowshed at the front, certainly not near the halfway line. We had all agreed that if necessary we would try and stop them climbing over the fence if they came up the grass bank. This did not happen, however, due mainly to WPC Jackie Jackson, who stood her ground and confronted the Wolves fans. This was no mean feat, and all credit to her, they were a fierce lot. An evening I will never forget, that's for sure. It's the only City match ever that I have left before the final whistle, because I knew what was going to happen next. Thank God those days are gone. Apart from all the match antics already mentioned. I recall all their coaches were parked along Union Road due to the vast numbers they brought down. Their escort back to the coaches resulted in numerous house windows being put through. We've had many firms come and go, Millwall, Swansea and Cardiff, but nothing ever comes close to that Wolves mob. Evil would be a word I would use to describe them. It's clear that the Wolves mob were hell-bent on causing as much trouble and damage as they could. They seem to be in at least 3 of Exeter's ends, but I think it's more about the KKK story than taking of an end. Thanks to our storytellers Mike and Chris. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of future videos.